Okay, so good morning, everybody. Good morning, Gilchrist. And this is Chris Schaefer, and I'll be moderating this morning and introducing you to our speaker today, Austyn Wells. And here's the quote we have is "Cultivating Calm and Self-Care for Nurturers." I think that's actually the title of her speech. And then her quote is, "To go into the dark with a light is to know the light. To know the dark, go without sight, and find that the dark, too, blooms and sings and is traveled by dark feet and dark wings." And this quote is attributed to Wendell Berry. So Austyn is a spiritual medium and soul gardener who combines mediumship, shamanism, hypnotherapy, grief counseling, and sacred ceremony to empower individuals to live soul-centered lives. Her book, Soul Conversations, A Medium Reveals How to Cultivate Your Intuition, Heal Your Heart, and Connect with the Divine, helps anyone explore the invisible landscape of their soul and the majesty of the universe. And without further ado, we will introduce you to Austyn Wells.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity to speak to you as a collective and taking off the hat of my profession as one human being to another. Thank you from the depth of my heart for your service. Thank you for the ways that you have shown up for the world in the last 2 years. Thank you for the sacrifices you've made. Thank you for you and your heart. Part of the reason why I felt so incredibly blessed to be included this morning was my work in a very fascinating way has allowed me to be a witness to relationships. And I have really come to understand the archetype of the nurturer profoundly. So it's my honor to spend some time honoring you and giving you some tools and techniques that I'm hoping will be empowering for you to understand why there sometimes seems to be an inherent duality within ourselves, because there's an absolute perfect reason that it exists. And so, especially as nurturers, because we are predisposed to be heightened and to be incredibly aware of the needs of others, almost to the point where we are unaware of ourselves. Especially with what is changing in the world, we have to learn how to do that with a better sense of balance, I think, because the demands are higher. What I love about nurturers is a lot of us come from a family environment where there might have been someone in the family who wasn't present, someone in the family who wasn't connected, someone in the family at some point who dropped the line to us, so our needs were not necessarily met. Therefore, we are highly sensitive to other people's needs because it's our self-care mechanism. It's how we have taken care of ourselves. And it's not everybody's story, but I do find with nurturers, for the most part, that's a really common thread. So we build an empathy. We have, in a sense, an intuitive nature from the get-go, because we're always looking to please people, because it's a way that we can survive. And it's a way that we stay part of something. But what ends up happening is that we overreach, we overgive, and then we get depleted, and that isn't always our best day. So it just felt necessary that I just wanted to take a moment to just honor that incredibly beautiful archetype of the nurturer, and why sometimes we can slip to rescuer. And in rescuer mode, we tend to want to fix, and our boundaries get lost in that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share screen. We're going to explore it energetically, and I'm also going to talk about it intellectually, but I want to engage the part of you first that deals with understanding energy. So let me just get my screen ready. There we go. Okay, so we've done this, we've done that. I love this quote. This is from The Little Prince. "It's only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." And this really speaks to a great deal of my work because I spend time in sensing what is invisible, which is connecting to things energetically. So what is the soul? Really good question. Before I engage the analytical part, what I thought would be a better illustration is for us to just spend a moment connecting with the beautiful invisible landscape of your soul. So go ahead and close your eyes. If you're driving, not the right idea to do that. But if you happen to be in a place in a space where you can, please go ahead. But you can be actively attentive and still pay attention and be in two places at the same time, but please do it with caution. All right, so go ahead and close your eyes. And the first thing that I want you to become aware of is the energy of you, not the physical body, not the beating of your heart, not the physical matter, but the energetic presentation of you, the electromagnetic field that is your soul. So just notice, where is the place that has the most amount of energy right now? Helps sometimes to do a body scan where you start at the top of your head and maybe just sense, where's that place where the energy is accumulating the most? And then just get curious about it. Does it have a rhythm? Is there a swirl to it? Is there a cadence to it? If you could draw it on a chalkboard, what would that look like? And if it feels comfortable, you can lay one hand on that area. Now, meeting the energy that way is one way of nurturing what is happening within you. Another way of doing it is through color. So I simply want you to ask yourself, what color does that energy need? Don't need to think about it. Just go with the first answer. And then imagine that color washing that place in space. And continue to breathe. Whether it's a rainstorm and it feels purifying, or whether it's a scarf that you're wrapping around that area. And then if the color, depending on the hue of the color, it might have a temperature to it. So just let that energy be met there. And then take a nice deep breath in and exhale, and then detach from that now and just notice how the energy might have changed. Okay, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So much like when we are born, we are surrounded with the embryonic sac. We equally have an energetic surrounding, which is an electromagnetic field called the auric field. And within that energetic presentation, much like the embryonic sac, all of our needs are met. But that once we come into the physical world, that energy space remains intact as our soul space. And so this is a drawing that kind of explains what it looks like. There's energy that comes in to us and energy that comes up from the earth. So honestly, we're always in a source, in a sense of connecting to that which is around us. And it's magnificent because it's constantly in this sense of motion. So there really isn't anything about your soul space or anything about your energy field that goes through the experience of being stuck. It's absolutely always in motion. And it's a great thing to know, because if you ever feel that you're getting emotionally overwrought, just imagining a current of energy that flows down through your feet and up and around you, as if you're being cocooned by an energy field, really can help and shift sometimes if you're feeling overloaded. So that energy field needs the chakras, which are energetic portals that help us understand our environment. And this is the invisible landscape of the soul, which is as valid as the physical landscape of our soul. And so the duality of the soul is this. We have the finite self, which is our human being. It's our physical body in a material world. And when we first come into form, we are energy first, then we step into physical form. And once we make that agreement, for a while, we are aware of the fact that there is an energetic presence around us, but we really start defaulting to that which is physical. So with that comes the physical senses that stimulate our nervous system, and they allow us to have these beautiful life experiences. But with that also comes our ego, our personality, our emotions, a singular awareness, whereas there's a different awareness in the infinite self. And then it's also a finite perspective, because everything that's physical has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I find it helpful to compare the finite self and the infinite self. And please feel free to supplant whatever words work best for you, as far as defining infinite intelligence, God, whatever works in that capacity. So whereas our finite self is physical, our infinite self is the spiritual being. It's that energetic awareness that we have an energy body. We have soul senses, which are exactly that piece that I was talking about that gets developed as nurturers when we are young, is that energetic connection to people, much like we have within the embryonic sac, that cord that connects us to the mother. So do we use those very mechanisms to energetically connect with each other. So instead of a physical world, we're part of the greater universe. We're part of a greater collective, which I will define as infinite intelligence. So instead of a singular awareness, we end up having a universal consciousness, or a collective consciousness. And the biggest difference probably is between having a finite perspective, where we are only on our own, as opposed to an awareness that we're part of something larger. Now, nurturers, for sure, are aware of the fact, because we are drawn to caregive others and a grander purpose and wanting to contribute in a greater way. We are predisposed to be absolutely connected to that infinite aspect of ourselves. With it comes different belief systems. So as in a finite self, I'm mortal. I'm an individual. I control my life, which I'm sure nobody can understand here, or none of us are trying to over control things at all, right? But the one big one that I think is really important to know is when we're in that finite self, we'll really be in that place of life happens to me, which can disempower quite a bit in that perspective. The finite self knows it's immortal, a very different conversation. And it's hard for our heads to wrap around it, because we don't really have anything that has that sustenance to it that we visually see. I am that I am. I'm part of a greater conversation. I'm connected to all that is. I co-create my life, meaning I'm not the only thinker. And then the last principle, which I love, is life happens for me. And the difference is energetic, because life happens to me means the circumstances outside of me, I am not connected to. They are happening to me, and I am independent from the circumstances of my life. Life happens for me says, I am learning, I'm in a classroom, and every single person I meet, whether I like them or not, is a teacher. It also empowers you, because it gives the ability for you to change. So the idea is we want the finite self and the infinite self to meld. So we are allowing ourselves to go between each, kind of like the yin yang symbol. And I love this analogy, because if you can think of this as the finite self and the infinite self, you know, it would be awesome if we were all in the infinite self all day long. But honestly, it's impossible, because part of the experience of being human is to be human. But the gift and the honor and the evolutionary piece is to find a balance where we can allow both parts of those aspects to operate within ourselves. So then we come to the subject of mind. So the mind, to me, isn't the place where our thoughts run awry, and isn't overrun and something that we have to change. The mind is an open field. The mind is the place and space of that co-creation. And we can either be in our human being, in that finite self, and be thinking that things are happening to us, and then repeating and running the same patterns over and over. Or we can learn how to mitigate that part of ourselves and honor our emotions, and then step into that place of infinite mind where we're not the only thinker. And then we get divine downloads and inspirations like Einstein. So let's talk about a couple of tools and techniques to cultivate calm. This is one I absolutely love. It's part of an energy system that I learned, and this was originally taught to children. So it's a brilliant thing for grandchildren. It's a wonderful thing for you. If you ever have to do a presentation, it's a good one as well. It's recognizing the energy and the emotions that comes into the hand. So the thumb, babies suck their thumb. It's because there's a level of emotional worry going on with them. And I'm going to explain the values of each finger and then how to self-care using your hand. The index finger is fear. I think we can all figure out what the middle finger is, because that one everybody seems to enjoy using. And then we have the ring finger, and this one just kind of, my heart gets involved on this one, because we honor our relationships with our ring finger, but that's where our grief lives. And if you think about it, grief really, for the most part, comes from our relationships. And then the little finger is trying to, like, I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that and I'm trying to do this, but it's also putting on a false face. So how you can step into self-care using your hand is simply by taking the left hand, which is where the energy flows in. It's our receptive side of our body, taking that hand and nurturing it with the right hand. So you're just going to, let's say you're doing a presentation and you're nervous about it and you're worried you're going to forget something and you're afraid that they're going to not like what you're wearing. You're going to put your two fingers together and simply cuddle it, not cut off circulation, cuddle it with the other hand, and you can put it in your lap and nobody knows that you're caregiving yourself. If you're with a patient, especially those of you that deal with hospice, and you have to be in that space where you hold that beautiful sacred witnessing space, and your own emotion is coming up because maybe you haven't given a space and a place for it, or you're touched by what's going on, you can hold multiple fingers. But holding that grief finger is so good because it helps you keep that stamina, or also it helps you stay connected to your grief. So it isn't something that's just way in the background. So do you see how this is a mechanism for the finite self and the infinite self to work together in a very simple mechanism? And I have a gift for everybody, which is sharing my slides, because instead of everybody jotting this down, I thought it'd be nice for you to have a copy of the slides that I have. So in case the principles are helpful, you can utilize them. So this, if you want to take your phones real quick, unless you're driving, you can take a picture of this QR code, and what it does is it pops you to a website that will show you a landing page, and on that is a place where you can download your gift. And so I'll leave it up for just a second while maybe a couple of people, Jane gets her phone. And if you wish, you can copy the bit.ly link that's there, and I can share it with Diane if you want to, or with Chris in case anybody's interested. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is, there we go. And I put the cursor back. Okay, so I simply want to come back now. And for those people that joined while I was beginning, thank you so much for your service. I could not be more grateful. But I think the greatest takeaway that I've had in the last 2 years working with people on an intimate level, the way that I do, is that we have to show up for ourselves differently first. And so that energetic exercise we did in the beginning where we gave color to ourselves, the infinite self is an electromagnetic being, more or less. It is light. It's the infinite spectrum of light. And if you think of yourself as a presentation of light, whereas we feed ourselves, feed the physical body food to take care of the infinite aspect of us, color is one of the most extraordinary things that you can do. You might want to sit with color cards. I have them connected with my book in case anybody's interested, but sit with color, because most of us haven't had a reacquaintance with color in a really long time. So we'll say, oh, purple's my favorite color. But if you hold the color purple without knowing it's purple, and you go through the exercise of seeing how you feel, you actually may find that you've changed. But color will feed you. So sometimes wearing something, whether it's a ring, it's a shirt, or even putting flowers around you that have that color palette that feeds you, is just something that visually you can go to. You can breathe into the color and you can use it as a mechanism to recharge your soul. So I'd like to open it up with the time that we have left to any questions that anybody has. I noticed that there's a question in the chat window. Oh, Olivia, thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Does anybody have any questions about anything? So I work, just to kind of go over the smorgasbord, I work as a medium, a shaman, an energy healing practitioner. I'm a hypnotherapist. I have a lot of licenses. I do a lot of different things. But if anybody has questions that would relate to anything along that line, please feel free to have a conversation, because I love soul conversations. And you don't have to type them in the chat window. You can just open up your mic. I believe you have the ability to do that.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Zoom user.
Yeah.
What's your name?
First, my name is Mona. First of all, thank you so much for this presentation. It's amazing. I so believe into the energy fields, and I do believe in everything that you have said, and I experience it every day in my life. And I would like to really know, how can I get in touch with you on a one-to-one level?
Oh, you're so sweet. So my name is Austyn Wells, AustynWells. And if you go to austynwells.com, you'll find a plethora of information about me. I work with, I've diversified my work. I've, just like all of you have altered and changed how probably you approach your work, I have in the last 2 years as well. During COVID, I got very concerned about mental health. I deal with a lot of parents whose children are in spirit because of our drug issues in the country. And so I became very concerned about solidarity and loneliness during COVID. So I started a meditation group. At the beginning of COVID, we went 170 days with a couple of interruptions. I started the meditation practice with people who said, I don't know how to meditate. I hate meditating. My brain is on fire. And now they're so hooked that we meet every Wednesday. And I also have a group of people that I work with that stemmed from that. And we meditate every week. I have a public meditation group every Wednesday night for free. And let me get that link for you as well, because we should be about giving, shouldn't we? Let's see. There we are. Wednesday meditation. There we go. I'm going to put a link in the chat window, and I believe I have it. It's yeah. So here's a link, everybody, in the chat window. Although for those of you on the East Coast, because I'm on the West Coast, for those of you on the East Coast, it begins at 9 o'clock your time. Every Wednesday, I probably do a little bit of a spiritual kind of mention, but then we spend a good 20 minutes meditating. And it's simply, for those of you, are there people who think that meditation is like something that's impossible? Do we have those in the group, or do we have people that are proponents of it? You can
Here, definitely me. Definitely.
Yeah, because for people that think that meditation is difficult, let me just introduce something. The whole reason I talked about the finite self and the infinite self is I want you to understand there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. We just, for some reason in our culture, do not take the time to help people cultivate a relationship with their own thoughts. So if you find that you've got worry and fear amok, the whole reason why I showed the difference between the finite self and the infinite self is that I want you to understand your finite self is just driving the car. And what we need to work on is, how can you get the infinite self to be driving the car and the finite self to be the passenger, so the finite self can chill out and the infinite self can start creating a soul-driven life where you're passionate about everything that you do, because you're really paying attention to yourself first before you're caregiving other people. And it's not impossible. It's not impossible because I'm a walking, living example of a recovering rescuer. Are there any other questions that people have?
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you very much. That was very interesting, talking about the finite and the infinite. I don't know if you're familiar with Richard Rohr. I've read Richard Rohr, and he talks about how we spend the first part of our life building our container. Worry so much about our container, which is what you're really talking about with the finite self. And then finally, I guess we get to this place of maturity and we really work on what's inside that container.
Well, and I think, and thank you so much, Jane, for mentioning that, because it's such an extraordinary observation. So container, yeah, he's just given an awareness to kind of that boundary that we have, that energetic boundary. But the problem is when we do start seeing ourselves as that life happens to me, it becomes a container. It should be diaphanous. It should be fluid and diffused. So things are permeable. It moves through it. But when we really isolate, when we start thinking that the world is against us, and we're really dealing with this right now with belief systems and comments from people where we've lost a sensitivity of respecting other people's belief systems, it becomes a container. It becomes like a prison almost, where we're disallowing ourselves to connect to our environment, and we are creating our own dissatisfaction by how we're perceiving things, but it's absolutely not the truth. So thank you for sharing. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to share? Okay. Yes, please. There was a voice.
No, this is Chris. I'm just the moderator. And so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you have any last thoughts, I did copy your link and put it into email so that Diane can send that out as she wishes. And I appreciate your insights. And thank you very, very much for joining us this morning.
Absolutely. My pleasure, everyone. And again, thank you so much for all that you do. I really appreciate it. Do your best, please, to caregive yourself. And oftentimes that's by beginning the day by asking what you need, which is not always the default that we go to, because we'll begin our day with the task list of the things we need to do, and not just sitting with yourself and honoring yourself, because what you are giving to this world is extraordinary. You're a miracle. There's no one else like you, but that energy needs to be focused so you can equally take advantage of the beauty of this world, just like other people do. So this morning has been a love letter to nurturers. So I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much for all that you do. And thank you for the opportunity to begin your morning. And I hope you all have a magnificent day.
Thank you very much.
Austyn,
yeah.
This is Roseanne.
Yes.
I just found my unmute. And I just wanted to say thank you, like everyone else. This has been really the message that we need to hear. Many of us know this is the truth, but we've been taken away from it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying something. I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. So I look, yes. Lindsay?
I wasn't going to say anything. I had it unmuted and all these sounds were going on. It was the energy in here.
Well, clearly you're channeling it. All right. Fantastic. Thank you all so much.
Okay. Thank you. And have a nice day, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.